1. I need to describe the park I worked at. Let's call it River Falls Park. Pretty large nature reserve, with a river running down the length of it, with a few waterfalls and rapids. The park has 3 entrances, each with their own campgrounds. We'll call those 3 sectors Waterfall, Main, and Forest. This is important. Because of the mountainous terrain and the river, the entrances are only linked by footpaths and trails. If you need to drive from one sector to the other, you must exit the park and go around it. It takes a good 15 to 20 minutes driving from one entrance to the other. Each sector is pretty much an independent campground. Each sector has its own pavilion with a different phone number, and offers different camping experiences. It simply makes things easier. I worked at the waterfall sector. One day we received a call from Forest. Someone was at their gates asking for a lot, and he had arrived in a camping car. That's a problem. Forest only had what we'll call natural lots, meaning that your lot is pretty much nothing but a flat spot to put your tent and a fire pit, located a short walk from an outhouse and a water faucet. No roads in that sector either. Camping cars are a no-go. In those cases, we are more than happy to accommodate with a lot at another sector if we can, and we could. Forest sent him our way, and 15 minutes later a camping car with beautifully painted lizards on the side arrived. Mr. Lizard had entered the campgrounds, and would leave a lasting impression at the River Falls Park, both by one of the nicest guests I've seen this summer, and also, well, you'll see. Since we had several lots still available, we described them to Mr. Lizard, but decided that the best way would be to let him drive around the groups so he can pick out the lot he prefers. Before heading out, Mr. Lizard tells us his wife and daughter should be arriving soon. He left their house early to set up camp. No problem, sir. When she shows up, we'll tell her which lot you pick. It is now around 11 a.m. After around 20 minutes, we see the Lizard van return. Mr. Lizard has spotted a beautiful lot and wants to rent number 31. Immediately, my coworker chimes in.
"We ain't renting you 31, it's tents only."
We'll call my coworker Rob. He's been working at the park for years, and knows every lot like the back of his hands.
"Didn't you notice the drop?"
"Well, it didn't seem that bad, just a little speed bump."
"It doesn't look that bad from the road, but if you had walked over, you would have seen that there's a foot-tall, sheer drop between the road and 31. You can park your camping car on it, but you ain't getting out."
"But it's the only lot with a view on the river left."
"If you want it that bad, then we can rent it to you, but only if you pay for the tow truck we'll need to get you out of it. It's your funeral."
Mr. Lizard wisely chooses another lot and heads back to check the lots out, but before asks if his wife has come by. Nope. We call Forrest just to be sure. Forrest has not seen Ms. Lizard, and promises he'll send her to Waterfall when they see her. Around noon, Mr. Lizard returns. He picks a more appropriate spot. He pays. He thanks us for being so flexible, and he drives back to set it up. Of course, he inquires about his wife. No, we haven't seen her, neither has Forrest. Mr. Lizard says no problem. Send them to my lot, and if they get lost, they can always call him on his cell phone. Flash forward to 3, Mr. Lizard comes to visit us once again. Turns out he just noticed that his phone has no signal on his lot. He asks if we had any news from his wife. Nope. We call Forrest. Nope. Maine? Nope. We even tried to call other camping grounds with a similar name to ours in case Ms. Lizard had taken a wrong turn. Still no. It's now 16:30. My shift is ending soon. In the meantime, Mr. Lizard has been walking back and forth from his lot to the front desk, the only area of the park where he has reception. Then we get a call from Maine.
"Hey, do you guys have a Mr. Lizard on your list?"
Here's what happened. Ms. Lizard had ended up at Maine. Rather than identifying herself as a camper, she paid her entrance fee as a park visitor. She did a tour of the campground trying to find her husband, and not seeing the obvious camping car with lizards, assumed he had taken it on some errands. She spent the afternoon walking along the trails and playing in the playground with her daughter, lost track of time, and had asked Maine front desk after she still couldn't find her husband. Bonus. Just as I was speaking to them, Mr. Lizard walks up to our door, and I hand him the phone so he can speak to his wife. After a few games of Chinese telephone in which he asks us for directions to get to Waterfall from Maine, and tries to repeat them to his wife, he gives up and tells her, "Stay at Maine, I'll get the camper and you follow me back to our spot," and hangs up. 10 minutes later, the lizard camper stops at our window. "Just to be sure, how do you get to Maine?" "Easy. Exit the parking lot, then left. Go straight until you can't, then left. You'll go over a hill, and on the way you'll see a big sign pointing left, saying River Falls Park, Main Sector. Follow it." "All right, left. Got it." So me and my co-workers are watching the camper move toward the exit, happy that finally the lizard family will soon be together again when... Wait, his turn signal? Oh no, don't tell me. I ran out the door as fast as I can, waving my arms, pointing and yelling, "Left! Left! Left!" Alas, to no avail, and I watched the camper car with the beautifully painted lizards turn right. The story ends well, however. The next morning, while doing my rounds, I spotted Mr. Lizard with his whole family eating breakfast. He thanked me again for our help and apologized for the troubles. They all loved the park, and were some of the nicest guests I've seen. This is but one of my adventures at Riverfall Park. 2. So this tale has 2 parts. First will be about how this came to pass, and the second is the situation. I work in a privately owned boutique hotel with affiliations to one of the big guys. We use their system and follow their procedures, but we don't have to follow their rules. We have like 39 rooms and are vintage, romantic, so people have been piling in since we reopened to get a little special time without the kids. Part 1, the workaholic. I have been working a lot lately, like a lot. I worked through all of Corona despite us being closed. I have been putting in 40+ hours a week since we reopened. I never say no to a shift and I'm always down to cover. I'm that coworker. I almost always work a 3 to 11 and have no other staff on site after 9 p.m. when the dining room closes. I worked a 12-hour last week because we're down all our housekeepers. Supervisor on stress leave because of COVID and the rest quit because of COVID. Then on Friday morning, my only free time this week, I headed out to grocery shop. And instead got a text from a co-worker asking me to come in early because her boyfriend had just gotten home from working away and she wanted to spend time with him, so I of course said yes. Left with what I had in my cart and went to work. When I got to work and she left, I realized she had the next day off and had the weekend before last off because her boyfriend got home then too. Since that was my only free time, I was pretty miffed. Especially when I heard she'd been telling everyone how hard work has been when she's been playing Facebook games all week. On top of that, my supervisor had left a bunch of stuff that she didn't want to do, as she does quite often for me. Due to our COVID policies, our front door was locked, and anyone entering the hotel had to ring a buzzer, wait for me to get to the door, take their temperature, and go back to my desk. It takes about a minute and a half total. I have a multi-line phone system that has been ringing non-stop most of the week, and it's become a high-stakes game to get to the door before the phone rings, not unlike that bolt during TV commercials. So gist of part 1, I'm overworked, doing work way above my pay grade every day, and running the adult version of the beep test every day. Part 2, the guest. So during this particular day, I had been left a lot of extra work. I spent the first 2 hours running and stressing and trying not to cry over the shitstorm I had been left with. By the time I actually got to do my shift opening stuff, it was almost 4:30. I started at 1:30. So we had a guest check-in. I'll call her Kitty. Kitty seemed very nice at check-in and was telling me all about her new boyfriend and how she had never dated a military guy. I made a few jokes being an ex-military spouse and we parted on good terms. She later came to the desk and we chatted more. Turns out she had overheard a conversation with myself and the dining room supervisor over how much work I did and how little I was paid. She asked me some questions and said she was always looking for good admins and that she worked in HR. We had a few conversations and got along well. It's not the first time I've had a guest try to offer me something. Normally it's wine or maybe some chocolate. It's always nice when guests recognize you're good at your job. But a job was unusual. So I kind of go along with it and say I definitely sent her a resume, knowing that I have zero intent on doing so. She extended her stay as they are intending to go buy a house, and she said the staff were lovely, so she figures she'd stay until then. I was off yesterday. When I came in today, everything was much less hectic than the last few days. I had no extra work, so I was basically gossiping with the porter and playing on my phone. Then Kitty came in. She was super pissed because we had holes on her credit card. She got me to show her exactly what had happened to the best of my ability. I knew exactly what happened, but for some reason she didn't seem to understand. Now, I have had drunk guests, sick guests, mean guests, nice guests, everything. Nothing phases me. I worked at a place with lots of kids, no problem at all. I'd yell if I had to. Worked in a sketchy spot with lots of construction guys that stayed there. I'd flirt back with the cute ones and rip up the pervs. Worked in a family spot with tons of Karens, and not one got to speak to my manager. But this lady, she was literally crazy. Basically saying that I was the only good staff and how dare anyone else charge the card besides me, when I was the one who checked her in, and saying she worked in HR and she knew how this all went down and they were all bitches, etc., etc. At this point I'm uncomfortable because the porter is right there and she's going on that she'll get me out of here and will get me a job and all this. She eventually goes to her room. What preceded was a 31-long email chain between my manager, my supervisor, and our accounting lady, talking about how this lady had managed to get the holes off her credit card and how to get them back. Eventually we figured it out and decided to leave her as a no post. Then Kay comes back to the desk. She wants to buy gift shop things. She wants a pair of earrings that match the necklace I picked out for her. I saw what she had on for jewelry the first night, so when she came to buy something out of our cases, I showed her a similar style thing. She then proceeded to tell me all about how she, at 37, had been involuntarily committed, and she was on disability for her bipolar disorder, and that she was going to talk to the owners tomorrow and tell them I'm the only competent staff and that I only work evenings and all this. She proceeds to go on about how we are the same, and I managed to convince her I have to close my shift. She then invites me to come hang out with her after and says she'll see me tomorrow. Immediately after she left, I emailed my manager and supervisor and said I do not feel comfortable working alone anymore and that I was scared of this guest because of how attached she was to me. After I texted my supervisor and said I was concerned about what the guest had overheard and how she might think it was helping me to tell the owners that when talking to them. At this point, my supervisor hadn't read the emails. She kind of brushes it off. About 15 minutes later, I get a text from her saying she is going to try to get the owners to let her ask Kitty to leave tomorrow. I'm glad I won't be scared at work, but I'm terrified with what Kitty will say about me on the way out. So yay, evicted guest, potentially boo my job? Three. I work second shift for a major hotel brand in a small city where most of our guests are business travelers, except for during summer weekends. My state still has fairly strict pandemic measures, so we've been pretty slow every weekend, except this weekend. Apparently, there was a baseball tournament for school kids that actually didn't get cancelled for some reason. I'm sure many of you can commiserate about how awful sports teams can be. This group consisted of 2 teams of 10 and 11-year-old boys. On top of the usual chaos, it seems that the parent demographic did not believe there was any reason to follow state and hotel social distancing regulations. I seriously still can't get over how absurd this group of parents was. So here we go. At check-in, the parents were informed of face mask rules. Most responded with, sure. I've been getting a lot lately from COVID deniers, and promptly disregarded my instructions. Despite signage and my instructions for social distancing measures, the parents spent the majority of the weekend congregating in the lobby without masks. The group of parents alone exceeded the maximum number of people allowed in the lobby. They were not respectful or responsive of me asking them to wear masks while in the lobby. I heard some of the dads referring to me as front desk bitch, and implying to the kids that they didn't need to listen to me. Plus, with such a large number of unsupervised children running around, it was also impossible to keep the place clean. There will be a list of unsupervised 10-year-old boy behavior provided at the end. On the second day, it rained a lot, so games were cancelled. The parents met in the lobby and started drinking right after my shift started at 3 p.m. They were all standing in the walkway for some reason, so I asked them to please move to the side dining area since other guests would be coming through to check in. As soon as they sat down, they brought out the alcohol. The kids were being terrors at this point, but more on that later. Within 2 hours, several parents were extremely intoxicated, including one mom who was belligerent for multiple hours, was extremely disruptive, and screamed at me a few times about various incoherent issues. My boss had told me that it was okay for them to be in the lobby, even though they exceeded our distancing protocol. But after a bit, they got so loud and ridiculous, some of the dads were literally gambling, that I wasn't able to hear the phone and wasn't comfortable checking other guests in, with them all over the place without masks on. So when I heard them planning to order food for delivery, I told them to use the banquet room free of charge as an excuse to better control their blatant disregard for social distancing measures. Most of them cleared out, and it was at this point that I saw some glass champagne flutes sitting on the bar. There was one couple left, and the woman was drinking wine out of one of the glasses, so I asked her if they belonged to her to make sure the glasses didn't get left behind. She said, "No, they're yours." I was confused. I asked her what she meant, and she just said, "They're yours," again, and pointed toward the bar. I asked who got them down for them. We aren't supposed to give guests reusable dishes right now. And she said, "Oh, I don't know, we took them." I didn't know how to respond. I asked what she meant. She points, "We just got them from there." I was literally speechless. What? They went behind the bar and took glasses from the cabinet without asking? What? Keep in mind, it's still only 5 p.m. Our bar is closed for COVID, and the restaurant has takeout during limited hours. So I guess their rationale was that since there was no one bartending, they could take things from the bar? When I confronted the group about it, none of them understood why it was an issue. They just kept asking if any of the glasses were missing, so it only mattered if they were stolen. I'm still at a loss for words. Anyway, nobody was ever wearing masks while in the lobby or halls, and despite being asked to stay in the banquet room, the rapidly wasted parents continued hanging out in the hallways, lobby, and outside. I received multiple complaints about noise as well as the danger of having to walk through groups of people without masks. We ended up having to comp a room near the banquet hall. Around 9 p.m., after complaints, I went to the banquet room and made a stern announcement that we were already making exceptions for them by letting them meet as a group, so they need to stay in the room and needed to wear masks if they left. Some of them, mostly moms, complied, but most of the men and kids still refused to wear masks. They finally went up to their rooms around 10 p.m., and I spent the rest of my shift sanitizing all the tables and chairs, since my houseperson had already left. Apparently, they were just as obnoxious in the morning before they left. While the parents were getting shit-faced, here's what the boys were up to. Running up and down the halls and stairs, banging on walls and doors, playing ding-dong ditch, throwing candy and wrappers on the floor, repeatedly making prank calls to the front desk from the house phones, including making sexual noises into the phone. Pushing the elevator 911 call button, entering the gym and playing with the equipment. Kids under 15 are not allowed, plus there are signs on some machines saying that they are not available during the pandemic. Climbing railings outside, propping outside doors open, screaming into walkie-talkies, lying to staff and parents about stolen items, and placing profane and crude post-it notes on doors and walls late at night. No masks. They were reprimanded by several staff members, including management, multiple times for all behaviors, but continued repeating behaviors. Parents were also informed of issues, but I never once saw any of them respond. 4. I started working in this chain timeshare/hotel, South Fence, let's call it. I had previously worked about 5 years as a concierge in one of the major hotel brands in the world, and they had a huge standard, which I adhered to, and I loved them, and they loved me. So I started working in South Fence as a front desk agent, and it was fine. This was a relatively small property, about 110 rooms total, so their rush was nothing to me and I liked it. My issue, I liked working there and the people overall, but there was this one girl who had a major attitude and would outright start arguing with any guest or employee that had anything to say. I would just look at her shocked because she would storm out and I would clean up after her. This small hotel had issues with employees being outright insubordinate to their supervisors, or the GM in general, something which was alien to me as any regular property, at least the ones I worked previously, you'd be sent home immediately. The girl was 19. And this was her first job, and I was in my late 20s already and had extensive experience and many accolades for excellent customer service. She, on the other hand, would start arguing in front of guests and being outright disrespectful to the job. Our biggest issue came when I was well out of my probationary period, and it was relatively busy, but the only thing she was worried about was what I was doing with,
"Make sure they sign the papers. Did you get their ID? Is the credit card valid?"
all while I'm explaining the paperwork to the guest. This was going on for every guest that walked in, with her making no attempts to greet them or check them in, or just organizing paperwork that could be handled when people weren't checking in. As I was taking care of this one guest, she again started with,
"Make sure you're doing your job."
I just put the papers on the desk and tell her, "You finish this, I'm getting a coffee." To which, in front of the guest, she grabs me and says,
"Do you have a problem with me?"
I stay silent, finish the final step in the check-in, and give the guest his keys. As soon as the guest walks out, I say, "Yes, I do have a problem, and we're both getting this resolved today with management." I call the GM on his extension, but she had his cell phone number and texted her version of things. My supervisor walks in and the GM follows. They call us both into the office, and I was not going to attack anybody. I was just going to state my point, that if I was doing something wrong so much, tell management and have it get written up, so be it. As soon as we walked in, she starts sobbing like someone died, that she is just so frustrated with everything and she can't handle my attitude. And I was being extremely disrespectful to her, when all she wanted was to help me, blah blah blah. All of this pouring through tears. I'm just confused as to why something like this warrants such an outburst of emotion. I'm just sitting quiet with my legs crossed, just staring at her go and go and go for like 20 straight minutes, just venting. Just to be clear, we didn't have a problem ever, and I would try to get her criticism, and just take it like, okay, thanks, and leave it at that. So my turn to give my side of the story. It was 2 minutes. I just said I don't like to be micromanaged in front of guests, it looks unprofessional, and it doesn't exude confidence to the guest, and if there was a consistent problem, to bring it up to management. I was not going to hold any grudge for doing so, but there wasn't anything to report, as all she wanted was to boss me around. Insult after insult. I just said I want a healthy work relationship, and acting like everyone's boss in front of guests for minor things was not the way. The GM, who's this mid-40s guy, had this weird relationship with her. She would be flirty with him, and you could tell he loved it. He sent her away and told me to be easy on her, and I should learn how to be more appreciative of someone who is just trying to help me. My mouth is just wide open with a smile, as I'm in utter shock, because I could not believe what was happening, so I just said, "All right." And I just didn't want to hear any more of it. He then had it in for me, and would get any excuse to teach me something on customer service. We're both from the same place, both bilingual, but he still struggled with English in a way that his teaching moment became me translating what he was saying to guests because they didn't understand him. The favoritism went as far as the girl I had an issue with found a better job and put in her 2 weeks and left 2 days into it and never came back. She kept visiting and insisting I let her in the back, and I would stay adamant as that was for employees only. She got tired of the better job a month into it, and he rehired her to the same position. Bruh. A month into it, she didn't realize that she would get paid the week after she started working, and went and screamed at the GM. And he just took it like a bitch. And she no called, no showed. 2 weeks after, he rehires her again, and offers her the room coordinator position, which had a pay bump, and to nobody's surprise, she quit again without any notice. I was the worst employee in his opinion because of multiple emails I sent to him and corporate, and he would get shit on. Eventually he got demoted to a much smaller property, and we got new management, and the only thing they had on me is that I was insubordinate. To nobody's surprise, I got Employee of the Month every month after he left, and to be honest, nothing changed in my work ethic. And they realized the great reviews the hotel was getting were due to the few of us that actually gave a fuck about guests, and it went from the worst job I ever had to the most enjoyable when management changed. When I quit, they threw every promotion they had available at me, as to please not leave, but I already had plans to live in another state and couldn't. I still talk to most of them to this day, and I still laugh about how incompetent previous management was. I have a million stories of the management, as angry guests were my speciality, and didn't get to me as much as incompetence of my superiors did. 5. This happened a couple of days ago. Ready or not, here it comes. I've just started my last 12-hour shift for this week, and in comes this couple, early to mid-40s. The husband comes up to the front desk, and here is a convo. Hi, my name is Super VIP, and I would like to check in. Sure thing. You'll be here for 5 nights? That's right. Great, I just need to swipe your credit card and you're on your way. Guest hands me his credit card and I swipe it. If you remember to upgrade me because I am Super VIP member, and I'm always entitled to an upgrade. That's just BS. He can have an upgrade, if we have the ability to do it. You have one of our newly renovated rooms, so I think we're in the clear. I give the guest his keys and he walks to the elevator with his wife. 3 minutes later, he is back at the front desk. I want my upgrade. The room is too small. Well, then I'll just have to look if we can give you an upgrade. I'm sure you can. The parking lot is empty. Maybe it is empty now, but that does not mean that we have rooms free. It's holiday season, so many guests check in late. And we don't have to give you an I don't care. I want my upgrade! I'll have to take a look. Moving the mouse around a bit, and I press some buttons, so he believes he's winning. Well, you are lucky I can give you an upgrade. I move him to another room, hand him the new keys, and he leaves. We are pretty busy at the front desk, so I don't see them leave the hotel for pizza. But I see them return with a pizza each. The whole lobby smells of it, because 75% of our guests are coming back with pizzas. Our restaurant is closed due to COVID. Nice one, GMs. The guest comes back down. My key does not work anymore. Oh, that is not good. Let's make you a new one. What's your room number? It is 6969. Your name is Super VIP? Yes, that is me. I make him a new key, and he leaves for the room. I shit you not. 2 minutes later, he is storming out of the elevator. My wife is missing! Say again? Your wife is missing. You just walked past me with your pizzas. Yes, and when we came to our room, the damn key did not work, so I left my wife outside the room, and I came down to you to get a new key. Have you looked in all the hallways on the floor? There are 2. Yes, and I have been shouting her name. She has been kidnapped. I think she's here somewhere, but let us go up to your floor and have a look. You guys are the only ones who have a room there, beside all the families in the other hallway, so I think we will find her. I'm sure she's kidnapped. We have to go look in all the rooms on that floor. We can have a look in the area where your room is, and then we take it from there. We take the elevator to his floor and he opens his room, and no wife. Damn. I open the other rooms in the area and we find no wife. Damn. I have to call the police. She has to have been kidnapped. Let's go down to the front desk by the stairs so we can look in the other floors. We take the stairs down, he sticks his head in at every floor, but no wife. We come down to the front desk and he starts to call the police. There are some guests who want to check in, so I check them in. all while I have him in my sight and I can hear him talk to the police. Then I hear one of the elevators open, and out storms his wife, angrier than a bull in a rodeo.
Where the fuck have you been? I've been waiting for you for 10 minutes.
But you were not at our room. I've been looking for you.
I've been sitting at the room and waiting for you.
Have we not been on our floor looking for her? We have, yes.
I was on the 3rd floor the whole time.
But your room is on the 2nd floor. I think that's the reason your key did not work in the first place.
You're an idiot, Super VIP. Now let's go up and eat and leave this poor lad alone. It's all on you.
Guest and his wife then take the elevator to the room, and I don't have anything more to do with them. I think that he's seen too many Hollywood movies. Who can kidnap a grown woman at a hotel without any sound or witnesses in under 2 minutes, and will take the pizzas with them? Hey everyone, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Coahw, number something something something. I forgot. Oh, there we go. Number 43. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. Well, that last story definitely made me want pizza. I think it might be time to take the risk and order from Pizza Hut well, no, not Domino's. I've heard bad things about them. Maybe Pizza Hut. Or if I can find another decent pizza place nearby. It's tempting. Because I've been having a craving for takeout for quite a while. It's not something I get all the time, but now and again, usually around about payday, I like to give myself a treat. So I'm thinking pizzas. My preferred pizza, I can't actually get this from a takeaway anymore, but it's a large pizza, biggest one they do, whatever the biggest one is. The crust is stuffed with whole hot dogs. Then you've got barbecue sauce on that. Then you've got chicken, mushrooms, and bacon, and lots of cheese on it. And I'm making myself hungry by even talking about it. Okay, I'm going to go think about pizza now. And with that, I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.